On December 17, 2025, officers responded to a short-term housing facility following reports of a young child left without supervision. Facility staff stated that a 2-year-old was seen alone in the parking area, wearing only a diaper, and appeared to be in a potentially unsafe situation. Staff also indicated this was not the first time the child had been left unattended. Officers went to the room associated with the child's mother and found it unoccupied. While officers remained on scene, the child's mother later returned to the room.
Ma'am, are you Chanel? Ma'am, hello?
This moment sets the tone for everything that follows. Officers are calm, measured, and focused on one thing, the child's safety. But notice how quickly tension creeps in. Chanel initially refuses to identify herself, challenges the officer's authority, and tries to re-enter the room. That hesitation matters. From a legal standpoint, this is no longer just a welfare check. Once officers confirm a toddler was unattended, especially in freezing temperatures, they're legally obligated to investigate potential neglect. And when cooperation breaks down early, it often escalates scrutiny. Ask yourself, if this were you, would you be defensive or immediately cooperative? Because in situations like this, perception can heavily influence outcomes.
Hi, your son is okay. Can you let us know what's going on? Hold on. I need you to tell me what's going on.
Ma'am.
I don't need to talk to you guys.
Yes, absolutely. You absolutely do. What?
I don't even know who I am.
Are you Chanel?
No.
Okay. So why are you coming over here then? Ma'am?
You're not going in this room. You need to tell us what's going on.
Call 3. This is reporting for mom is on the phone, but
Tell us what's going on. Your son is okay.
My daughter left before I could get here.
Okay.
This keeps happening.
Okay, just tell my
Ma'am, can you just talk to me here? Just explain to me. Why am I
She
here?
left. She left before I could get here, sir. My daughter left to school before she could get here.
Okay.
I've been DoorDashing all night. I dozed off trying to make money.
Okay. Well, what's your name?
My name is Chanel.
Okay. Is your last name Quintana?
Yes.
Okay.
She called me at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
I missed her phone calls.
I got you. Just take a deep breath here. Okay. So
I asked them to grab my son for me before I get here. And so that's what they're doing. They're holding my son for me.
Okay.
That way you guys wouldn't.
And you said your daughter was watching?
They were
Your son?
sleeping, yes. They were in the room
What's your
sleeping.
daughter's name? Does she got a phone number?
She's in school, sir.
No, I asked if she had a phone number.
She
That's all.
has a number.
I'm not calling her right now. That's not one of those goofy WhatsApp numbers or
No,
anything, is
that's
it?
her
Okay.
cell phone.
Can you show me that one more time, unfortunately?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just all over the place.
I gotcha.
Here's where the story gets complicated, and where credibility becomes critical. Chanel explains she was DoorDashing overnight, claims her older daughter was supervising, and insists she only dozed off briefly. But listen closely. Timelines are fuzzy, responsibility keeps shifting, and key details don't quite line up. Legally speaking, leaving a 2-year-old under the supervision of another minor, especially overnight, can be problematic depending on age, maturity, and duration. Add in exhaustion, traffic delays, and missed phone calls, and suddenly this isn't about intent. It's about risk. So here's the tough question. Does financial desperation justify taking that kind of chance with a child's safety?
I love my son. I don't want to lose my son.
I got you. So, last night you were door dashing. What time did you start?
I started around 9 o'clock. My mom scanned her face. I started door dashing.
Okay.
By 12, I was like, I want to keep door dashing, but I'm ready for bed. But I kept door dashing.
Okay, I got you. So, you started door dashing at 9. Your
daughter-
daughter was with the kid the whole time?
Yeah, all night.
Okay, and your daughter?
Yeah.
Okay. And how old is your son?
Very.
Okay. So, your daughter said that
She was
she
leaving.
had to go
She's
to
like,
school.
Mom, yeah, she's like, Mom, where are you? I'm like, And I told her, okay, I'm coming. I'm almost there. I parked my, I pulled over and parked the car by North Avenue in Elmhurst.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I'm only a few minutes away. Let me just nod off. And then this morning when I'm driving over here, I'm hitting fucking traffic.
Okay.
Yeah, she woke me up. She woke me up, calling me, telling me, Mom, I'm about to leave. I gotta go to school. And I said, okay, just tell her to watch Logan for me till I get there. I should be no more than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I came here as soon as I could, but I kept hitting traffic.
Okay. So I'm just gonna be completely transparent with you here, okay? Just because of what happened today, unfortunately, I have the duty that I have to take protective custody of your child right now.
This is the turning point. When the officer says he's taking protective custody, that's not a punishment, it's a safeguard. And that distinction matters. Protective custody allows law enforcement to temporarily remove a child from a potentially dangerous situation without determining guilt. DCFS involvement doesn't automatically mean permanent loss of custody. It means the state needs to assess safety right now. The officer even explains that the child could be returned later the same day, which ultimately happens. Still, emotionally, this is devastating. And legally, this is where the system prioritizes prevention over regret. Would you rather authorities overreact or risk reacting too late?
Okay. No, it's not up to negotiation. Okay, I understand. I understand that you're upset about this, but I need you to listen. Okay, ma'am. So what I need to do is I need to contact DCFS. Okay, it doesn't mean you're not getting the kid back, later tonight, in a week, whatever. But I need you to get it together right now, okay? Because we got to talk a little bit more. Okay, because what happened today was unacceptable. Okay? It's like 30, 35 degrees out. And your child was roaming around in the parking lot and could have gotten run over by a car.
No, thank you. Take my baby.
I have no choice, okay? So what I'm gonna have you do is I'm gonna have you come downstairs with me, okay? No, I'm gonna no. I need to have a further conversation with you. In the meantime, what I am gonna have you do is I'm gonna have you sit in the back of my squad car. You're not going in handcuffs. I'm gonna have you stay back there just while we. Right now, you are detained. You are not under arrest.
This distinction is critical and often misunderstood. At this point, Chanel is detained, not arrested. That means officers are legally allowed to restrict her movement while they investigate further, but she hasn't been charged yet. No handcuffs, no jail yet. However, new information keeps emerging. Driving without a valid license, using someone else's DoorDash account, and most importantly, the confirmed danger to the child. Each detail compounds the situation. This is a textbook example of how one incident can snowball legally, even if that wasn't the original intent. The question is, at what point does empathy give way to enforcement?
But I'm gonna be...
Not necessarily. Okay, I need to do some more follow-up. So let's go downstairs, and you're going to turn to the right. We're going to go over my squad car on the other side, okay? So real quick, why were you running across the parking lot over there? Where's your car?
I got dropped off. My friends didn't want to get here because they don't want to be over here.
Okay, so when you were DoorDashing, you weren't driving? We're going to go over this way.
No, they were driving, but it's my mom's account.
Okay.
It's my mom's account because I don't have a valid license.
Okay, I got you. So, real quick, just stand at the back of my car. Okay. Do you have anything in your pockets that...
Yeah, I have stuff in my pocket.
What do you got in there?
Gum, nail stuff for nails.
Okay, do you have any weapons on you, knives,
This
anything
is
like that?
sharp.
What is it?
It's like a nail thing for nails.
Okay, I got you. So you don't have any
makeup.
drugs, nothing like that? Okay.
No, I don't do drugs.
Okay. All right, come over on this side. Okay, I'm just going to have you... Okay. Hey, you're not in handcuffs, so just chill out, okay? Right now you are detained, so I'm going to have you stay here and just relax, okay?
I don't deserve my baby. I don't deserve my baby. I don't deserve my baby. I deserve this baby. I'm a piece of shit. They're gonna take my baby. No. They're locking me up. They're taking me to jail. I'm going to jail.
No.
I'm in the cop car. I'm in the cop car. Hold on. Don't say nothing.
Okay, you got your phone on you?
I do.
I'll take that.
Why? I'm going to jail?
Right now you're under arrest. Okay.
Why?
You're under arrest.
And here's the moment everything changes. The officer formally places her under arrest for endangering the life of a child. Intent no longer matters, outcome and risk do. Under the law, you don't have to mean harm to be held responsible for exposing a child to danger. Notice how Miranda rights are read immediately. That's not intimidation. It's protection. Once arrested, anything she says can be used in court. The officer actually does her a legal favor by telling her to stop talking. This raises a powerful question. Should emotional breakdowns influence legal accountability, or must the law remain neutral no matter how painful the moment?
What? But you're not telling me why.
You're under arrest for endangering the life of a child.
But how? But I told you my daughter was telling me she's taking him away. No, I wouldn't purposely leave him. I didn't purposely leave him. No. I didn't purposely leave him. No. No, 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 no. I didn't leave him. I didn't purposely leave him. I love my son.
What are you doing?
I love my son.
Okay,
What are you doing right now?
You're trying to lock me up. Like I don't love my son. I love my son. I would never leave him.
Hey, you want to come over here real
Never
quick?
leave him. Why are you doing this? I told you what happened.
Listen. You don't need to talk. You do not need to say anything. And you know what? Because...
I just don't understand. You told me
Listen.
you would talk to me.
Okay, so I'm going to read your Miranda rights.
Why are you locking me up?
Do you understand each of these
Yes,
rights?
but why
Okay,
are you locking
listen, I'm not done.
You told me you would talk.
Once we get back to the PD, I'm going to ask you more questions. Okay, but until then, you don't need to say anything. Okay? You've been Mirandized. Okay?
The woman was charged with endangering the life and health of a child. Child Protective Services took temporary custody of the child and transported them for a medical evaluation. The woman was cited and released, and custody of the child was returned to her later that day.
In the end, this case lands in a gray area that the law confronts every day. Chanel was charged, her child was temporarily removed, medically evaluated, and then returned later the same day. No prison sentence, but a permanent legal record and DCFS involvement that doesn't just disappear. This wasn't about malice. It was about risk, responsibility, and a system designed to intervene before tragedy happens. Whether you see this as necessary protection or excessive enforcement likely depends on your own experiences. And that's exactly why cases like this spark such intense debate. If you found this case as shocking as we did, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping courtroom and police breakdowns.